Okay, as I said, welcome. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon. I am recording this presentation, and we'll post a link to that on the website hopefully tomorrow morning. I have, just so you know, I've disabled the ability for you guys to share your screens or to chat. We just find it becomes a little bit overwhelming with so many people trying to communicate at the same time. So if you do have any questions following this, or you've got any questions that are not answered in this presentation, please feel free to contact either myself or Mr. Tandy via email or phone call, and we'll be happy to answer any questions in that format. So the purpose of tonight or this afternoon is really just to share a bit of information about the Year 10 trial exams, the upcoming trial exams, the purpose of them, format, what it will look like for your children in that week of exams, and just ways that you can help to support them and indeed us here at school. Okay, so without any further ado, so the trial exam period, well, the seated trial exam period runs from Monday the 23rd to Friday the 27th of June, although there are exams in the practical subjects before that, and there are one or two scheduled after the 27th, but we'll get into that as we go through the timetable. Okay, so first of all, an obvious question is, why do we do trial exams at Orleans Park? So, I mean, the important thing about these trial exams is the first time that your children will have an actual formal seated exam experience in the way that they will sit their exams at GCSE. So everything about these trial exams is designed to replicate the experience that the students have for their actual scheduled GCSE exams. So the way that we prepare them, the way we line them up, the way we get them into the exam hall, the way the exam hall is set up, everything about the experience is designed to be is identical to the experience that Year 11 students are currently having at the moment in their current GCSE exams. So it's the exposure to that, building confidence so they know what to expect. It's not all brand new in Year 11 when they sit their actual exams. There are two other trial exam periods in Year 11. So by the time we get to the May-June exams in 2026, students will have had 3 different rounds of trial exams, and they'll be really well versed in the expectations, how it works, just the nuts and bolts of the days, what to expect. So we get the real experience. The timing of exams is different. So it's longer than a 1 hour lesson that we normally have in school. So the ability to sit a 1.5 hour exam or a 2 hour exam. The exams are marked in the way that examiners would mark them, and the feedback that we give is geared towards the way that exams would be marked. It allows us to look at how students are progressing in terms of real exams as opposed to topic tests, which give us an idea about how a student is doing in a single topic. But with an actual exam, we can see how they're progressing across, sometimes a year of study. So experience with that, experience with timings, the exam timings, how to pace the answering of an exam. It's not uncommon for students to find in their first few exams that they ran out of time. They spent too long on this part. And that's the whole idea of it. They get real exam experience so we can iron out all those hiccups along the way. And there's a few other things on there as well. You get to understand what areas perhaps your students need to focus on, what areas they're feeling confident with. And it can also help in some cases with early applications, although we find that's more relevant for A-level students who may be applying to medicine or an early applicant situation. So that's our rationale behind doing the exams. Okay, so hopefully you may have seen these already. So I sent a letter out, which you obviously received because you're on this call at the moment, detailing with a few things attached to it, one being the exam timetable. So this is our working timetable for the exams at the moment. As you can see, we've got in the few weeks leading up to Friday the 20th, I need to change my front slide actually, it's where I forgot we had the Friday. So in the few weeks leading up to that, we've got the practical exams. So hospitality and catering, textiles and art all have a practical exam. and you can see the dates for those there. We start the formal seated exams on Friday the 20th with the language listening and reading. We had to push into that week in order to be able to fit them all in, because the listening needs an individual space, because obviously there's a foreign language playing, so they need a separate area for those. So we have the from Friday the 20th through to Friday the 27th, and these are the formal seated exams. As you can see, there's a lot going on each day. So we've got big exams where everyone sits the exam, for example, maths, English, and science. These are timetabled as one, so every student in the school in year 10 will be sitting a maths exam on the morning of Monday the 23rd. Likewise, the afternoon of Monday the 23rd, everyone does science, so they'll all be doing a science exam on Tuesday the 24th, and then again another maths paper on the afternoon of the 24th. Where it gets a little bit confusing, I guess, is when we have the option block exams. So you can see here on Wednesday the 25th, in the morning we have option block A, and in the afternoon we have option block B. So every student in year 10 will have one subject in option block A. So if they have, for example, you can see here business studies, if in option block A they have business studies, they will sit their business studies exam at that time. Let's go to the next screen. So you can see all of these on the left-hand side subjects that are in option block A. Down here on Thursday afternoon, this is when option block C will be having their exam. So again, every student in year 10 will have a subject in option block C as well, and they will have their exam for whichever subject they study in option block C. So it's important that the student knows what option block they are studying, which subject. A lot of them don't, because they're not too concerned with codes, etc. And we'll talk about how we can navigate that in the next couple of slides. You can see here on Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 1st, we have a couple of contingency days. It is likely that there will be some students who, for whatever reason, might miss an exam, have another commitment. We might have a clash with one or two, one or two cases. So it's possible that we'll have exams running on Monday afternoon and also Tuesday afternoon. There's also a possibility the further maths paper will be moved to Tuesday afternoon, because there is a year 10 trip on Monday the 30th that couldn't be rearranged, and it is likely there'll be some students that'll be on that trip that will also do the exam. So we're just working that out now. That will be updated as and when. Okay, so this has been shared obviously with families via parent mail. It's also been put into Google Classroom for the students to be able to see, and I've also placed it on the school website. And I've just got a link here. In fact, I'll show that at the end because I can't open it. In fact, let me show you here. So this is the school website, in particular the exam section. And this is really, it's quite a useful page for students and families alike. It's got a lot of information about the exams policies, contingency plans. This is the timetable for GCSE exams and year 10, year 12 trials. This is the one that's relevant for us. This is a link to the document that I was just showing you. Down here, there's information that's relevant to year 11 in particular, but also GCSE, course information. There's revision timetable templates. All of these are really useful as well. And if we go further down, you'll see the trial exams information. This is the letter that I sent out earlier this term, or in fact, this week, I think. Exam boards, we often get asked questions about which exam boards different subjects used. That can be found here, and that's relevant for year 10 as well. And at the bottom, there's information about exam regulations and coursework regulations, etc. And that's free for everyone to see. It's quite useful. It's quite useful for families to be aware of that site. Go back here. There we go. Okay. So we do issue personalised exam timetables that will be personal, obviously, to each student. These will be issued after half term, and they look something like this. So this is an example of one from the November-December trials that Year 11 did 2024, so current Year 11. And your child will be issued with one that looks almost identical to this, with the exception, obviously, of the dates. So information that we've got here, the date on the left-hand side is the date of the exam, obviously. We've got the time that the exam starts. They'll either be at 9 o'clock or 1:15. And that's the time that the exam starts. The physically pens will be picked up and the writing can commence. This is not the time that we line up. So students are expected to be ready to go well in advance of these times. We'll talk about the logistics of that shortly. We have the name of the exam. So this student is studying single science higher. So that means they're doing separate science. And this paper is the physics paper. So it's trial paper 2. And it has the length of the paper here, which is duration, which I haven't circled for some reason. So separate science is 1 hour and 45 minutes. And the location is the sports hall. And the sports hall is set up with, as a traditional exam location, you have rows and rows of desks. Each student has their own individual exam desk, identified by a row, letter, and number. And you can see here this student will be seated in B2 for their history paper, D3 for their maths paper, etc. Okay, same sort of thing here. The only difference here is you'll notice on the right-hand side, the rooms. In some cases, students have access arrangements, and you will likely be aware if your child has access arrangements. Some students, for example, require a PC, so they'll be in one of the computer rooms. You can see this student here is in the computer room A35 for their English Lit trial. So this means that this student would go to A35 instead of the sports hall. And you can see there's a few options here, for example, a smaller room, A34 for a child development paper, etc. So it's really important that students are aware of what room they should be in, and we give them instructions as to how they line up, where they line up, etc. But all that information will go out after half term in this format. And it goes out via parent mail. The students are issued with it as well. Here it is. Okay, so in terms of the logistics and the protocol, so this has been shared by Mr. Tandy with the Year 10 students last week. Just give you, and it's important that you guys have an idea of what they look like, what the exams look like, how the setup is, the logistics behind it, so you have an understanding of what your child is experiencing. Okay, so we often get asked, do they just turn up in time for the exam? So this is a normal school week in terms of timings. We expect Year 10 students to arrive in time for registration, and they are registered in their form rooms at 8:30. And we then have form tutors that will take or escort or bring out the forms to line up on the Astro by 8:40. So we line them up in the rows that they will be seated in, which is not in relation to forms. It's alphabetical and tier or exam. If they have an afternoon exam, which majority of students will have an afternoon exam every day, we ask them to line up by 12:50 at the latest, and we get them in for the exam. Students must wear school uniform, full school uniform, and that's the case for their actual exams at GCSE as well. So we expect them to be in normal school uniform as they would normally be. Normal advice about toilet. Yes, they can go to the toilet if they need to in the exam, although obviously the clock does not stop for them. So we would suggest that everyone goes to the toilet beforehand, make sure their water bottles are filled up, etc. We expect the students to know what row they're in, what letter they're in, makes everything a lot smoother. Having 200 people trying to read a seating plan on the wall is not particularly efficient. So we would expect students to know where they're going to be. And it's really, really important. This is a big one for examination officers and invigilators. We do not allow any mobile phones or watches in any exams. That's an exam regulation by the exam boards. So we replicate that in Year 10. Obviously, mobile phones will be in yonder pouches anyway, but any watches are not allowed. It doesn't matter if it's a digital or analog watch. All watches, as decreed by the exam board, must be left in a bag, not in the exam hall. So my advice would be, if you have a particularly expensive watch and you don't want, or you don't want your child to have it in a bag with 150 other bags in our, we have a small room to the side, where everyone will be going through in order to pick up their bags on the way out, we would suggest you leave that expensive item at home. So bags go in the adjacent room. It's locked, so no one can enter it from either side. However, every student will exit through that room in order of their rows, and we're not there to keep an eye on every single bag as they're exiting. The bags are pretty congested. So again, the valuables, I would suggest leaving valuables at home for this week. We replicate exam conditions, so they must be in silence when they walk into the exam hall. They can't sort of look around, be silly, anything like that. Anything like that is considered to be malpractice, and we are replicating the conditions as they will be for the GCSEs. So we're pretty tight on that. So looking around, smiling at people, all of these things are considered malpractice, and the invigilators are really tight on it. So please stress that, as we have been to the students. We'd advise students to make sure they have the correct paper. Our invigilators are really good, but human error does occur. So we encourage everyone to check and make sure they have the correct paper in front of them. There are clocks all over the exam room, and we advise students to get into the habit of looking at them periodically to make sure they know how much time they have left. If they have a question, the pen runs out, their calculator doesn't work, they need to go to the toilet, anything like this, they're not allowed to call out. They have to raise their hand, wait till the invigilator comes to them, and then ask the question quietly. Importantly, they're not allowed to communicate with anybody else in that room. That includes looking around, making eye contact. Anything like this is considered communication. And again, that's an exam regulation. Little things like writing on exam desks, that will also disqualify you. It's against exam regulations. Any writing on hands, so prior writing on hands, that will disqualify you. So we go through all these things with them as well. Of course, if we have a fire alarm, we have a contingency plan in place. We ask students to stay in their seats and then wait for instructions. When exams finished, they all have to wait until the time has expired, so they're not allowed to leave once they're finished, as they won't in the normal exams. They then have to leave the exam calmly and in silence, get their bag from the adjacent room in silence, and then make their way to their next period. The reason why we need to do this in silence is because there may be another exam happening in that exam hall that hasn't finished yet. So, and also it's the exam regulation, they must leave in silence. A lot of regulations. Just a quick note about the invigilators. They are independent of the school. We employ them as invigilators, but they are beholden to the exam board regulations. So we can't say to them in the GCSEs, oh, please allow this student to do this, or don't report that. They follow their protocol, and we have no bearing over whether or not malpractice is reported to an exam board. That is down to the invigilators. And the Centre, to protect its reputation, will report malpractice in the actual exams. In the trial exams, we will inform students if something they have done equals malpractice and the impact of that, and explain the impact of that in the actual exams. But to be clear, malpractice in the trial exams, whilst it will disqualify a student from the current trial exam, it will not have an impact on the actual GCSE exams in May, June 2026. Okay, almost there with the with the background information. So expectations of the week. So our school rules, all school rules apply. Phones are in pouches. We expect everyone to be punctual and on time, and we really expect everyone to be in full school uniform. Any flagrant sort of issues with that, and students will not be allowed to sit the exam in the exam hall. They may be required to do it in the internal room or something similar. And we obviously expect everyone to be polite and courteous at all times. In terms of the day, how is the day set up? So we expect students to arrive at 8:30 a.m. They get registered, we do the Onda pouches, and then they line up on the Astro. If the exam finishes before 11 a.m., they go to period 2. If not, if it finishes at 11 a.m., they go to break as normal. All year 11 students then go to period 3 as normal. And during that period, they're allowed to revise for their upcoming exam. They do have an early lunch, which will run from 12:10 to 12:50. So they go into the canteen before Key Stage 3. And at 12:50, we expect them to be lined up on the Astro, ready to be admitted for their afternoon exam. And we aim to get them in the hall by about 1 o'clock, so we can promptly get them seated and ready to go for a 1:15 start, hopefully a little bit earlier sometimes. So they line up at 12:50. Now, there are some students who will not have an exam either in a morning or an afternoon. And that will be because perhaps they take textiles or art or hospitality and catering, or everyone on Thursday afternoon when there's no exam scheduled. If that is the case, students go to their normal timetabled lessons, and that's a normal day in terms of timings. Okay, importantly, they are allowed to revise in lessons. So if the exam is a 1-hour exam and they go to period 2 at 10 o'clock, then they will have period 2 and that shortened period 3 to revise for their upcoming exam. So there will not be taught lessons, although let's say there's a science exam in the afternoon and I've got my science class period 3, I might well choose to just do a bit of revision for that class. In fact, I will choose to do some revision for that class. So 9 times out of 10, they'll be able to revise with whatever they like to do. In rare occasions where the exam is next, the teacher might choose to do some revision or something similar. Now, importantly, if students are expecting to revise on their own, they have to bring in their revision resources. They all have slightly different exams with the option blocks, so they'll be expected to bring in material that they can use to revise. For example, it might be that they bring in revision guides, revision notes, all the things you can see on the screen there in front of you. We are allowing students to bring in laptops and headphones to be used with laptops, but obviously these will be monitored and must be used responsibly. Anyone that's using them irresponsibly will have them confiscated or removed for that period of time. And we'd expect students to bring them in every single day. Now, again, I know we've talked about expensive equipment not being brought into school, but if your child has a laptop, they want to use it for revision, then they can store it in my office or Mr. Tandy's office on the morning, and in the morning of the exam, get it back for the revision session or something similar like that. Just to be very clear, phones will be the normal phone policy. So we're not allowing people to use their phones for revision. We are aware that they can be a powerful device to use for revision, but having them out of the on the pouch is logistically quite difficult, quite challenging for us. And also, it just eliminates the possibility they're used for inappropriate things. I guarantee you that if you have a class of 25 people and they all have their phones out, they will not be revising with them within 5 minutes. So it works better for us if we say no to phones. Students are aware of that. They need to prepare their revision materials accordingly. It's worth pointing out that the Google Classroom has been created for Year 11 trial exams. I've invited all students in Year 10 to that room. I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the Google Classroom here. I've posted the topics to revise booklet, the revision guides document, the trial exam timetable. Mr. Tandy's put some things on about revision timetables, a 20-hour challenge, etc., etc. So that's a really useful site for your children to use in order to have more information about the exams. And I'd recommend, if they haven't already done so, that they all accept the invitation. About 95% of them have. So if you can check, that would be amazing. We'll go back to this one. So that's the Google Classroom. There we go. This is, I just showed you. So this is the really useful one, the topics to revise, which is this document here. I haven't updated it. It should say 2025. I have updated it. I just haven't changed the date on the front, I should say. So all heads of department have checked this and made it relevant for this year's Year 10 trial exams. It has a list of topics. It has what the paper is going to be. That's going to be students' first port of call when they want to find out some information about what topics will be on, for example, the physics exam, what topics will be on the history exam, etc. And there's a link on this document to it as well. This is Mr. Tandy's revision timetable. So you can see here he has put together a standard weekday. Now, We find that different students like different level of detail with these sorts of things. And you can see here, this student has, well, this mock student has put in just the topic, the subject they're going to revise on, for example, Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're going to revise English Lit for an hour and then geography for 1 hour. Some students like that level of detail. Personally, I prefer slightly more detail there, as in a little, maybe another line saying, I'm going to do this particular area in English Lit. More about that as we go through. But this is accessible on the Google Classroom as well. And a revision timetable is a really useful organizational tool that we would absolutely recommend that each student creates, and ideally with some help from home to make sure it's not too generous, shall we say, with the TV and whatever else might be happening. And we get, so this is one for the holidays. So we've got half term next week, a really good time to kickstart all the revision. And that is going to look, I haven't put a mock one on here, but that will look very different because we don't have the big block of school. So you'd expect to get some more revision done over that holiday period. Mr. Tanny's also posted about the 20-hour challenge. So this is in Classroom. You can see here a really simple block of a table with 20 slots in it. The idea being that they achieve a 20-hour sort of threshold of revision over the half term. And where you come in here is the student will fill out, okay, my first hour is on English language, and this is the date, and so on and so on. And then we're asking parents or carers to sign off on it. Each student that returns that will enter into the draw, and there's various prizes attached to completing the 20-hour challenge. It's a good way to encourage students to get started or to continue their revision. Okay, so this is probably the, not the most important, but a really important part for families to be aware of. So the revision tips, advice for revision strategies, and how you guys can help support your student or your child at home. So these are my general revision tips, more detail to come. So revision timetable, we've talked about some strategies here using flashcards or mind maps or past papers. A really good example of a good strategy is to practice teaching others. Really important to have regular breaks, get enough sleep, eat well. You know, don't just go absolutely crazy revising for 5 hours. It's not going to stick. There are loads of revision websites for each subject. My suggestion to students is always to speak to their classroom teacher. They will be the experts in which sites they feel are best for their subject or their topics. Similar for YouTube channels, there's loads of really good ones and some not so good ones. TikTok, I would suggest steering clear of. So, look, I'm not a TikToker by any stretch of the imagination. I've seen some of the things that the students in Year 11 are showing me. Some are really good, some are absolute garbage. And I would imagine it's quite difficult to sift the good from the bad. And there's so many of them in a platform that teachers don't use particularly well, I would say. So I would steer clear of TikTok and also the mindless copying of textbooks. We need some active revision. So let's have a look at those strategies. Okay, as I said, this presentation will go up on the onto the website, so you don't need to furiously make notes or anything. But these are just some revision strategies that people find successful. Some will work for some students and others will not work. It's all about finding which works for your child or a combination of many. Okay, so space practice. So we want to have a little bit, so a short period of time, but lots of examples of that short period of time. Cramming is not an effective revision strategy. Studying from 8 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning for an exam the night before is going to do no good at all. And that's going to need a revision timetable to make sure that we've timetabled out everything. We've got a little and often approach. So short sessions across several weeks. So we've got a month before these exams. Let's use that time wisely. Retrieval practice is another proven method that is successful. So quizzes, flashcards, past papers, going back, revisiting, testing recall, cover up your notes. So if you've made some notes on a website or a revision guide, cover them up and try and talk it back to someone at home, or write it down on another piece of paper without having to look back at the revision guide. So how much can you remember? Dual coding is another one. So combining words and visuals. So timelines, graphs, equipment, flowcharts, mind maps. So linking a visual with the actual information. Certain subjects lend themselves better to that than others. Interleaving, so literally interleaving different subjects. So we might do 20 minutes of English, 20 minutes of maths, 20 minutes of science. So that short and often thing again. Flashcards are really popular. I would say my pet peeve is when students say to me, I've done hours and hours of revision. I ask them what, and they say, I made flashcards. And then I see the flashcard. It's a beautiful flashcard with loads of pictures, and it's gorgeous. But it took hours and hours and hours to produce 10 flashcards. That is not a useful use of time. There are loads of apps, Quizlet's one, where you can make online flashcards. It takes less time, but using them well instead of just making them. So the making of them should be the very quick part. It's the use that's really important. So, look at it, cover it. Can you answer the question or recall the information, then repeat over a period of time. Past paper practice questions. This is, I think, the single most important thing that students can do. It has to be implemented wisely, so there's no point in going straight to past paper questions before you've done any other form of revision. But this would be, especially at GCSE actual exams, this is the big one. This is a really important one. Getting used to what the exam board is looking for. How much detail do they want to get 2 marks for that question? What sort of, if you don't get the marks, what do the mark schemes say that you should have done? What does the examiner's report say? So using the past papers is really important. There are loads of websites where you can get past papers. You can get them from the exam board. You can get physics and maths tutors, got all the science papers, all the maths papers on it. It's really, really useful. This is a good one. I personally really like it for science. Self-explanation, essentially explaining it to somebody else. Can you explain that difficult concept to a brother, a sister, a parent, whoever? Can you explain it? You find out really quickly that you don't fully understand something when you can't explain it properly. Okay, so I think that's a really good one. Obviously, you need someone else to do that too. You can use a pet, but it's probably better if it's a human. Checklist, specifications. Most of our subjects will be providing or do provide specification links or checklists. They're really useful to know exactly what you have to cover. Mentioned this before, active revision. So not just reading a textbook over and over again has been shown to not be as effective as actively doing something with that textbook, even if it's just writing some notes. Writing notes would be my not the best option, but it's better than just reading or highlighting. So do something with that textbook. Read the textbook, shut the textbook. Can you then draw the flow diagram of that concept? Can you write the bullet points that that textbook page has explained, but can you do it in 5 bullet points, that sort of thing. And again, this is, I think, key is this chunking, this short sessions, but lots of them. 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to study this particular topic. Not just I'm going to study physics, but I'm going to study, for this half an hour, half-life in physics. And I'm going to do that from 5:30 to 6 on Tuesday afternoon. That is so much more effective than just going into your room and going, I'm going to do physics revision now. Where do you start? So obviously planning helps there. Okay, so sorry, bearing with me, it's a long one. The big thing, how can you guys help at home? I mean, the single biggest thing you can do is take an interest. Ask questions. What exams have you got? Let's have a look at your exam timetable. Ooh, what have you got first? Oh, wow, you've got 2 exams in maths. How are you going to manage that? Ask questions and take an interest. What are they doing? What sort of revision are they going to do? Can we sit down and do the revision timetable together? We all live busy lives. I know this, but it is what it is. If you've got time, taking an interest is really going to be helpful. So all of these things obviously have that little caveat. I appreciate that a lot of us work and we have other commitments, etc. Help them create a routine. That revision timetable, again, really important. Are they sleeping enough? Are they doing so much revision that they can't unwind, and therefore they're watching TV until midnight, and they're getting up at 7:30 and they're not getting enough sleep, or even later than midnight? So, are they eating healthily? Are they getting enough breaks? That sort of thing. Are they going for a walk or getting some fresh air? Encourage that sort of thing. If you can, and again, we all have different living arrangements and different constraints in that sort of thing, but is there a possibility of your child being provided with a distraction-free environment? Is there a quiet place they can revise? Can you perhaps encourage them to leave the phone in a different room? That's a really good distraction technique, or distraction tool, having that phone with all its potential distractions right there. So, can you encourage that? Keep an eye on them. Are they stressed out? Are they doing too much? Are they worrying so much that it's becoming a problem? So their well-being and mental health is important in this period. We want them to be taking these exams seriously. We want them to be as close as possible to actual exams, but part of that is managing the anxiety around the exams as well. And be encouraging. Wow, you've done a really good couple of hours of revision there. You've broken it up into different chunks. Well done. Let's go and meet your mates for an hour or two, or whatever it might be. And lastly, celebrate the effort. So if they're working hard, celebrate that. It's not just about the results at the end of the day. So encourage, celebrate what they're doing, and just be present if possible. The results. So results will be issued alongside, or as part of, the monitoring report that is issued on the 16th of July, which is obviously right before the end of term. Some departments, as they mark the papers, will provide feedback to students as and when after they do the exam, and that will obviously hopefully be shared with you guys at home. But if no information is forthcoming from your child, you will have the trial exam results as part of the monitoring report on the 16th of July. And lastly, look, I mean, we talk about how important these are, and we're trying to make it as close to GCSE exams as possible. But it is important to note that they are just trial exams. They're not the actual GCSEs. They are trying to give us an idea of where everyone stands, but they won't have an impact on sixth form or college applications to trial exams. They will not have an impact on GCSE grades at all. And if it goes terribly wrong, if the exam goes pear-shaped, it's not the end of the world. So we want to look after the students at this time. We want to reward and celebrate the work they're doing. But this is what it is. Now, trial exams in year 11, it's worth saying, can be used for college applications if you're applying for an external college. So that is true. So mock exams in year 11 will be provided to external colleges if you are applying to an outside school. But at the end of the day, the actual results are the ones that will count. So I know we talk a lot about them being super important, but it is important to take a moment just to consider that it's not the be all and end all. And we do encourage students, if they're feeling overwhelmed, to go to their form tutor or speak to someone else they trust, and we can offer them support in many ways. And that is that. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it's a bit of a long one, but I will post this to the website. There'll be a link to to this on the website, and the presentation I've gone through I'll post to the website as well. If you do have any questions that I haven't addressed, please put it in an email to myself or Mr. Tandy, or give us a call here at school. Otherwise, thank you very much and have a great evening. Thanks. Bye-bye.